Yeah, so I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I am a co-founder and CEO of Destor. And so people are kind of like, why is she talking about all this stuff? Just a little bit about me. I started off in product marketing. My first launch was the very first Jeep Grand Cherokee ever. I'm that old. I also helped invent Tide with Bleach. That's how old I am. And from a software and technology perspective, I worked at Intuit, helping them on QuickBooks and Mint.com. And again, like product launch. I've launched lots and lots of different brands. But I thought this would be really cool. I don't know who, did everyone here attend the session yesterday? Most people, yep. I don't know, I love this, and I kind of want to check in with everyone in the room. I'm trying to make this a workshop-y as possible. And I was wondering, so this is Juan's slide. I want to know if anyone has any feedback on it. Do we all agree, if we're going to use this kind of as our blueprint now for how we self-define, if these are in fact the right buckets? So we have, you know, Web 2 large-scale storage, Web 2 object storage, Web 3 object storage, and Web 3 chain storage. Are we missing anything here? John?
What I'm struggling to do, well, I agree with the swim lanes, and I agree with the demarcations betwixt them and the product specialization that's required to get there. What I'm really struggling with is that this is in effect defining application performance for an L2 layer that is consuming our L1 layer. As such, getting that to interact, Filecoin's Tier 4 block archive, specifying these application layers on top of that is kind of like an OS trying to define the applications that are going to be bundled with it. So each one of these is going to be entirely different, and I'm struggling either if we're going to try to leverage the fill token to make these L2 layers work, and why would SPs do that if they're out there creating these app layers? I'm having a hard time tying it all together. I completely agree with the swim lanes.
Yep.
I have a hard time doing it in an abstract, specification-driven way for the Filecoin L1.
Okay, who else? Yeah, I can bring you my mic. I'll go here first.
I think I agree with the swim lanes. I'm not sure it makes sense for us to try and attack all of them at once. I would probably start on the right-hand side and move to the left, because the Web3 large-scale storage is where there is an existing market with a lot of people competing and will aggressively compete to defend that space, and have a history of being very willing to undercharge in order to defend that space.
Yep, I fully agree. Anyone else? Yes. Yes, here.
There is going to be the other slide, and I'll speak to it. Yes. But I don't think Web3 chain storage is its own swim lane. I think with the Web3 market is, and we know this from speaking to them, and Daniel, you've been speaking to them a lot too, right? Yeah. They're barely customers, hands down. They're already bought off by AWS and GCP with their seed round or what might look like a Series A. So well, why do they need to convert? We talked about this last night.
Oh, I have a really good exercise. I can't wait to
And I think that, yes, it's useful to say that Filecoin stores all blockchains on the planet, or we'll call it 80-20, whatever that means. I am just not convinced that, you know, Triton, who I'll talk about later, isn't going to just capture the whole market because they've already targeted that.
Right.
So and what is the market cap? Is it $1 million a year?
No, and then most of them are not paying, at least in their current state.
No, they're
and
not
if they are,
paying.
Yeah, we can, and I can circle back to this.
Yeah. So this is kind of where I wanted to play next, which is where you were headed, leading the witness. Is there anyone here right now from, I'm going to pick on Daniel because you're here, and I know some of the people here, but when you look at it, so I do have a few deals up here, and on Juan's slide, being Destor, I was here in this lane. Now, what I'm putting this as is the paid storage deals. Paid, not free, paid. So technically, Seal does not have a paid deal under Web 2 Large Enterprise. They have a paid deal with Boxfin, and Boxfin is a Web 2 object storage sold by Destor here. But back to the paid deals, do you agree with this of how we've kind of spaced them out? Now here's Seal.
Yes, for the most part. However, getting back to the L1 versus L2 app layer, the one thing that I think is missing, and this is something I've been hammering on for a long time, is, again, Filecoin is a tier 4 archive block storage that completely fails to have interoperable block retrieval based on data sets. There is no structured data to any of the archives that are going out there. Now, there are some people who argue that we're not supposed to overlay any concepts of a file system on the sectors that go on chain. However, I would point out that for every one of these applications, even though the data may go on chain and all these replicated CIDs, the magic decoder ring for retrieval is contained within a centralized authority because there's no interop with any of these use cases. I can't take my top-level CID for a rolling snapshot of my large language models, store it with Seal, and pull it back with FTH, even if all the data is pinned.
Right. Got it. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, Daniel. Got a cave.
Yeah. So, although our focus is mostly on the Web 2 large data sets, I'd say if there's a Web 3 company that's coming our way that is looking for object storage that is smaller, we'll still consider taking that deal.
Yeah.
And kind of to what Paul is saying, agree that the large TAMs are on the left, but there's also some value with having paid deals on the right. Just
logos and use cases.
Logos and use cases.
And figuring out how it all works and kind of having people that are ready to have some hiccups, some bumps in the road, a little bit of jank.
Early wins.
Yes, because they're early adopters. Yeah, absolutely. It's lower risk. Okay, so also my other question to the group is, are these correct, that these are networks across the bottom? Are these networks?
I think we're going to have to revisit in there as a room because...
No one's here from them?
Well...
They had too much fun last night. Yeah,
I think the point of this is, like, there's some people in the room that represent these companies.
Yeah.
There might be a disconnect as to what you're trying to achieve, what your current status is. I mean, I do think that, like you said, Akave is trying to approach the first three. It's a little unclear to me. I'm pretty sure Titan fits there. My work with Ghost Drive and Lighthouse tend to fit in those. Oh, if you can go back one.
Oops, sorry.
But there's clarification that we're trying to get out of this. So some of us that are receiving leads on the inbound at least can point people in the right direction, because we don't actually know what's being sold, what your target customer profile is. So this is going to get published, as Juan talked about, in a more table-like format, and it's going to be public. This is just a primer of a discussion.
Can we just?
Yep.
We're questioning whether they're networks. Can we define network?
Yeah, so I'll say how they don't define. They don't define as an SP. So when I called Akave a storage provider the other day, they were like, no, 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 no. And I would say, so that they're getting a token, there's like a whole bunch of, but they're a network in their view. Daniel, you're a network.
Yeah. We help onboard data to the Filecoin network, so we would not only be able to onboard data ourselves, but we'd also be able to be an on-ramp for other storage providers to the network.
What's the network aspect then?
The network would be not just us, but multiple SPs on the back end that we're helping send data to, whereas there's some on the top that would just be storing for themselves.
I think I disagree with the use of the word network in that sense.
What? Can you spitball what you would call it if you could?
I don't know what I would call it. Well, an onboarding ramp. Just because you're
Like an
a
on-ramp?
funnel, that doesn't mean you're a network.
No, so one thing that we can do is be an on-ramp to the Filecoin network, but we also have our own chain and our own testnet and our own token that we'll be launching next year for providing hot storage. Yeah. We would be able to store ourselves separate as well.
Okay. A network on top of a network on top of a network. I'm a network on top of a network on top of a network. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I did want to get a pulse of the room. Who thinks Web 2 large-scale storage is the biggest thing Filecoin should go after? Raise your hand. I'm just curious about who thinks that's.
But it's a 12 to 36 month sale.
Well, I just wanted to see where everyone's at in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Web 2 object storage? Yeah. Maybe like 12 to 36 months. What about Web 3 object storage? What timeline is that?
It's
for
30
folks?
days.
30 days?
Yeah.
And Web 3 chain storage?
I think it's the same thing. I don't see it as a different thing.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's a good pulse, right? Because like we're going after these, but I want to make sure everyone thinks about it also in the time horizon of maturity of where we're at with our tooling, with our network. And there are things that we can tackle today. And I think, Daniel, you made a great point to say, you know, it's really helpful for you guys to go after certain opportunities in the Web3 object storage space, if that's easy to tackle. But you also want to really focus long-term on the bigger piece of the pie, which we know has a larger total addressable market.
So this one, this is, like I said, it's a 12 to 36 month. For instance, we have two 600 PIB deals, one 600 PIB, one 700 PIB. They don't come online until 2026 and 2027, and the POCs, respectively, are 10 PIBs. And it's 600 PIB year-over-year growth. That's a 36-month horizon. That is a weekly call. So just think of the lift. And that's just from a BD perspective. I'm going to get into what it actually takes from a strategy of go-to-market and personas and all the people that are in those deals that you have to be influencing and selling as well, assuming you get in the door. Yeah.
Crazy enough, if you look at the chain storage, the work that we've done with two chains explicitly,
Solana and
Cardano, have
get out.
The amount of work that's gone into that is shocking, right?
Yes, the hours that go
engineering
into a deal.
hours with Triton as basically the dev team, and then a couple SPs plugged in the back end.
Cost of sale, CAC is ridiculous.
It's not a very valuable market, even though from a marketing perspective it might be.
It is.
And not that I'm going to talk anyone out of the room, you know, that's working on it, but the amount they're willing to pay too is borderline less than wasabi.
But that's the expectation as an early adopter. You expect to get it for very, very, very discounted, and to be a use case, to be referenceable, and also to deal with all of the learning that goes along with that in the back.
Well, I did want to say one thing, and then I'll give over the mic. I slightly disagree, because I think a lot of, we talked about this actually at the Hacker House, which is to say, you can start with chain data, but if you can bring, for example, all the dApps building on Solana to automatically back up, if we can get that plumbing right, then the total addressable market for chain storage goes beyond that. But we need that layer of plumbing.
Yeah,
so it's not just the backup of chain. I think if there's an opportunity for us to do the plumbing in between, there is a bigger TAM.
Yeah.
The market is also about the Web3 narrative and capturing that. And the Triton project POC had a lot of PR impact that was really good for both networks.
Absolutely.
So that's not
and as a marketer in the room, I would say it's worth it. So like Seal Storage recently signed a deal with University of Utah to do a whole free engagement. It's a big engagement, and they get to reference that they're storing NASA climate data, and it's huge. And they came to me and said, "Can you help us, you know, look at the white space and gauge how much it's actually worth, like how many millions of dollars for impressions and PR and all that," which I did for them for an analysis. So, and then they did a cost benefit as to actually what the hard cost for them, and it, you know, it made sense. But a lot of people can't do that type of analysis. Some of it's just, but when it's huge chains, absolutely, it's worth it.
But good caveat, it needs to be worth it for everyone down
Everybody, yeah.
Meaning the SP has to be willing and to be paid. That was a big portion of what we ran into, is that for an SP that's somewhat nameless or doesn't need they don't need the PR of another blockchain storage. Like, they need the PR of a major Web 2 company.
Yeah.
That's where it's very difficult to say that this is, definitely we need to do it. But the caveat is, like, everyone down the line has to be in agreement that this is worth their time. And that's the very difficult part we've ran into.
How much time do we have now? Time check to do personas?
Yeah, we have time. Let's turn over to that. I did want to say by Eva's point, it's a really good point, which is there is a degree of marketing, because Solana actually, when Old Faithful first started and was announced, we didn't get that much press on it. And somehow, like, overnight,
we were actually
earlier
hushed.
It was hushed.
We were hushed. We were told we weren't allowed to, and because they wanted to make sure that everything was running beautifully, and we were on a gag order, and it got leaked by someone on the team internally.
But the documentation was public. I'm saying it was discoverable.
It was discoverable, but we weren't supposed to be talking about it. We weren't allowed to do press around it, PR, socials, tiles, talking, AMAs. We couldn't do anything because they wanted to they wanted to make sure it was running really well. And then in the meantime, someone on the internal team tweeted about it, and then it was out, so.
Great. Okay, so why don't you get started on
Okay,
anatomy?
so personas. This might be boring for some people, try not to be, but the idea is that I'm going to go through kind of an anatomy of a deal and the people that we bump up against, and I'm going to change my screen, and you can have access to all these. There's templates and stuff of client personas, or we call them ICP, Ideal Customer Profile. Ideal Customer Profile being the people that we talk to either through outreach, which we do now, we actually actively outbound. But before, when we were PL and working as network growth, it was all inbound traffic coming off of Filecoin.io. So this is Web3 West. Web3 West is the one that makes all the money for us right now. Web3 West is who Daniel's referring to, about they're willing to take the deals. We have 5 paid clients that are Web3 West right now. And then the other person that they have to satisfy that is actually a bottleneck that we've discovered is, I'm calling Tasha the CTO. The reason why this is a bottleneck is because this person thinks it's awesome. And I have a whole profile I'm going to pull up so you can see, but they own a little bit of Filecoin. They think it's kind of cool. They've been following it along. They're very interested. They think they can innovate with it. They're trying to figure out paths to market, how to innovate, how to get there faster. Can they even monetize it? So they are the one that initiates the call. So it's the CEO that fills out a form, takes a discovery call with me, and we chat. And they're very interested. They want to do a POC, and then they ghost. And they ghost because Tasha is in build, their input, and she does not want to introduce risk into her project because moving off of AWS, they're in a production environment, they're on a timeline, they've got dev teams, they're pushing, they're MVP, they're going whatever, and they can't take the time or induce the risk into the organization to stop and find a way through a very unknown path to moving on to decentralized storage.
I know exactly how this plays out, which is like CTO Tasha has heard about us or seen something, and like every engineering team in a large enterprise has a Web3 Wes who sits in the corner, and then like they're not the most productive person on the team, and their kind of thing is that they're the person who like explores new technology and instead of doing their own job. And you know, Tasha asks Web3 Wes, go, hey, I've heard about this thing. Is it cool? Should we use it? Should we investigate it? And Web3 Wes spends 3 hours kicking the tires on it and goes back and says, yeah, it's cool, it's great, or goes back and says, yeah, I couldn't get it to install, it didn't work. And I think that's why Tasha doesn't call back.
I agree. Okay, does anyone else know Web3 West? No? All right. This is the enterprise side. This and the bottom 3 are the people that we never get to meet. We never meet them. There can actually be up to 15 people in a storage deal. The biggest storage deal I did was when I was with Veritas. And it was a big storage virtualization project. And there were 15 decision makers in the room. Yeah. And some of it even goes to the board. Oh yeah, Web3 West has to go to the board, and so does Tasha. And that's a problem too, because the board can just veto it. So, but over here, these people want an S3 bucket or an SDK. That's what they want. SDK. But what they need is, all of them agree, is it needs to look and feel and sound just like what they're used to installing and running in their environments. And what do they need, Paul? They need an Active Directory. And so they all need to have these things ready-made that they can use with enterprise-grade applications. Snowflake, for instance. The other thing too is if we look at who we want to be displacing, everyone thinks, oh, backup. We're backup. Filecoin's backup. Filecoin is not backup. Filecoin is a great backup target. But if you want to back something up or compete with backup, say Veeam. Veeam has 60,000 channel partners in North America. Or there's me. I'm selling backup for Filecoin.
Sold.
There you go. So, and guess what? I don't have Super Bowl tickets or a private jet. The other seller does. So, but these are the people that I have to convince. And I need content, strategies, all kinds of things for each of these, which I'm going to go into if you want. But Innovator Ian is my executive sponsor. And they are bought in, they believe, and people ask me, what about retrievals? He assumes it works. He doesn't know from retrievals and doesn't care. Not one bit. He wants to know how the hell he's going to sell it internally to Jill of all trades, who's really very security focused, very risk adverse, and runs a very, very busy IT department and doesn't have time to deal with anything. You got Security Sally that has documentation, GDPR, SOC 2, ISO 9002, all those things that they have to satisfy, and she has to sign off to the board, literally could go to jail for it. And then you got Procurement Pete, who needs 3 bids minimum, and he doesn't like vendors that he doesn't know, and he certainly doesn't like technology doesn't know. And he expects you to be as buttoned down as AWS, Wasabi, and Arweave. And then you got Compliance Carl, and he is never available. We never see him. We just know that we have to always justify his compliance requirements. And then lastly, there's Detractor Dave, who's a dick. And Detractor Dave, you will never meet, and he will say it's a bunch of janky hooey, blah, 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 and he's not coming to the meeting. But guess what? He's the one who has to sign off. This is the anatomy of a deal. So when people say product market fit, it's product market fit for all of those personas is what we're dealing with. So I'm going to see if I can click here. Okay, Innovator. Here's Ian. All right, Innovator Ian, this is the question they always ask, every single one. I've done over 575 calls, discovery calls with people, and I would say 60% of them are Innovator Ian. And Innovator Ian always asks me this question, is Filecoin ready? What he means is enterprise grade. That's all he wants to know. He wants to use it, is it ready? Because then he has to go back to that whole crew of people and get into discoverability, but why? So there's a whole bunch of stuff here. There's lots of words. But what I wanted to show was that to sell to Innovator Ian, it's 6 to 12 months. And we know scientifically, because I've run tons and tons of business development teams with hundreds of BDRs calling, it takes 8 to 12 touches. And a touch could be a download, an AMA, a webinar attended, a white paper, a call. They need 12 touches before you can actually get them to convert.
How does he define enterprise grade? Is it like a certain level of availability and durability or SLAs and certifications?
It just works.
It just works.
That's a fair, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's probably step one. Like, can he log in and put a file and walk away? Because his job, I've run an IT department. It's like we're in, procurement phase of like you have to buy. I remember having to buy or delineate between Dropbox, Box. We were buying on-prem devices. We had a CIO who was maybe sleeping with somebody at Pure Storage, and we were forced to buy Pure Storage. So there's all these factors that come in. But in the end, if you can't log in, and in our industry, put and retrieve a file, fail. But the other enterprise part comes down to those personas that were on the checklist of like, is there an Active Directory implementation? Do we need to see if this is a SOC 2 compliance facility, if we have to be in that realm? PCI, there's a number of things that go down the list. We're probably not, yeah, we're not necessarily ready to tackle any of those, but enterprise ready, the basics, tend to be around a Windows-based authentication environment, hands down. LDAP might work. Some type of Okta integration is helpful because every enterprise on the planet has to use, I mean, people in this room have to use 40 different applications. They want SSO, that needs to work. If it's going to go down to the John Cykerbike level, we'll probably talk all the way down to like, what does the data lifecycle management look like? But at its core, if it doesn't pass those basics, deal's dead. Because you really only have about usually one phone call for the demo, maybe two for the POC, and if you fail the POC, done.
So Filecoin has something that AWS doesn't have, which is PORAP as an SLA. That's like groundbreaking. So you're trying to you have this.
It's very hard to sell, but it's groundbreaking in that we don't have a great visualization for it yet, right? It's very hard to sell without being able to visualize the green checkbox. And
we need a GUI green checkbox.
GUI green checks.
You mean a table?
No, that says my file, even if my file is in this car file and it's been checked at this timestamp. It's
just a UX.
But the storage deal proof, like the CID, all that.
No.
So making the UX of that better is what they want, but down to the file level, which we haven't done yet. But yeah, okay. Okay.
We can fake the file level stuff, right? That's that's not hard. But we only have 15 minutes to demo a product, at best. At best.
What about the retrieval part? Is that also part of it?
Yeah, they just assume it works.
Well, I was going to share that a decade ago, I worked at a small startup in Redmond called Microsoft, where they had 50,000 channel partners helping sell to enterprises. And they didn't have the state-of-the-art product. I mean, they were still selling SharePoint 2003 in 2014. But they had a sales force that knew the messaging for what customers want. And the reality is, when you think about the addressable market for large-scale Web 2 storage, some of them may not really care about what's sexy or what is interesting. They just want a solution out there that meets their requirements. And so we do have to speak their language, but also share what Filecoin can do as an addition to that, and let them figure it out. Because it's the same discussion as yesterday, where if you were to tell somebody, go live in a house with strangers, go live in a stranger's house, Airbnb would have never really entered that market. So we also have to help translate that for people.
This is what I wanted to get into. So who here is a organization, like a company, a project that has data, that produces data? Who stores data? Who stores data? Okay. How many, keep your hands up if you store data on Filecoin. Keep your hand up if you store data on Filecoin and you can retrieve it. Keep your hand up if you put data on Filecoin and it got lost.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, okay. So this is where there's a lot of talk about PMF, and it's a trigger for me and I won't go there. But what I want to talk about is this, which is fear. We talk about pain. Everyone's like, oh, well, they're not, what's their pain point? What's their pain point? Pain point doesn't mean shit. We endure so much pain. What do you fear is the question. And that's the tipping point of where we need to get to. We need to figure out a point of fear. So what would it take for FF? What's terrifying? I'm going to go over here. What's terrifying to FF enough that FF would put all of its data on Filecoin? Because it's on AWS right now, some of it. What would it take?
I do not know the answer to that question right now, but FF does not store. I mean, we should ask Ian if Ian's in the room, because
he has some video, a lot of your videos on AWS.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there because it's convenient and it's reliable and it's retrievable, and when we need it, we need to display it in real time, and Filecoin doesn't offer us those guarantees in the way that we want to. We should absolutely be eating our own dog food, and we don't.
So there's my thing. Everyone's like, oh, but the Web3 ethos. Look at this room full of Web3 ethos, but we don't store our data, our enterprise data, on Filecoin. So what's it going to take? So I would love, my ask of this group from a PMF standpoint is help everyone here figure it out, because this is the group. We are the ones we need to convert. We are the ones that we need to figure out the pain point. this is the group that's going to help us learn and figure out how to crack into that Web3 space that's going to give us all the logos, all the love, all the chains, all the publicity, and then all the money. But it's the question, what is the pain? What's the fear? So, you know, I've worked the compliance angle. So what does Web3 West fear? You know, and this is, Paul, and Paul put this up when we were having dinner, which are the questions around, like, inertia is our biggest competitor. Our biggest competitor is inertia. Before we even get to the table, because no one's ever, like, they don't consider that they're actually in pain, because there's no fear. They're in fear of an audit, they're in fear of ransomware, they're in fear of, you know, all those different forms of risk. Those are terrifying for them. So if we can find a way into Filecoin being the answer with a Filecoin provider or a storage provider, solution provider, network, then we'll find a way in. But we have to figure out what is the fear that's hard, like so terrifying to them that they're willing to endure the pain of moving, because we all know it's really difficult. That's why we don't do it. Really, it's difficult.
To what extent, and maybe this is a question for Stefan, is the people who are existing customers, you know, a lot of us in this room, we're ideological, true believers in decentralization and privacy and all these things. To what extent is that true of the existing customers and existing users? Because I don't think you've really touched on that as an audience. But also, how big is that audience? And how much are they willing to sacrifice and how much pain are they willing to take in order to follow through on their beliefs?
Right. And that goes down to, it's actually geographically, very geo-specific. We're finding the biggest product market fit we have for pain is for security breach, and that's Europe. The other reason is because of the cost of data centers. They can't afford to build their own data centers, and they also just have a very strong ethos in decentralized technologies, and it's just really cool right now, frankly. It's super, super hot. But yeah, it's Europe. Europe is where we need to be focused. That's where, but we need to have data centers in, like, data sovereignty is a major, major, major requirement. It's table stakes. If you don't have data sovereignty, you can't compete. It's just crossed out. So, but that's the pain. That is a market that you don't have to sell them on anything. They literally are killing me right now for a price list. They just want, because they want to start selling it to each other. Like, it's huge. It's just booming. And we don't have it in North America yet. We're not seeing it.
On Europe, is there a angle of we should be going after the smaller, like IT departments and whatnot that don't have the giant budgets? They also don't have the giant data sets, but at least we can get a groundswell of tiny little IT departments on board and get them making use of it first?
Web3 West, absolutely. Web3 West in Europe, and they're willing to work with us. They actually want to monetize it. They're very, very innovative, and they see the conversations we're having is, first of all, is Filecoin ready? Second is, do I need to become a storage provider to do this? And then, oh, I don't have to? Okay. And then is there a way for me to actually monetize my client's storage so that I'm actually, I can say cost per bucket is this much to retrieve if you want to retrieve your data, if you're storing, like, say, architectural diagrams that I'm storing for you. So they're actually finding it a way to get to market faster. So they're using it as an innovation tool. So I would say the #1 learning we've had from all of the conversations, everyone we're dealing with, that if you can get to Web3 West in Europe and help him figure out how to innovate, get to market faster, accelerate timelines, you'll win the deal. But they don't have big data. Like 35 TIBs is our average.
Somebody said this, I think, when we were up in Chiang Mai, which is that, like, it's much easier to sell an innovative new product to other startups than it is to sell to big enterprises, because, like, they're interested in, like, using new tools to have a competitive advantage. It was like in the early days of the cloud, it was really hard to sell cloud services to government and to big enterprises, but it was very easy to sell AWS to another startup who didn't want to have to be going down to a data center with a screwdriver.
Yeah.
And
then we did buy versus build, TCO. It's now actually really hot for CTOs in North America. They're all about building their own data centers again. They're building their big ass fiefdoms again. So they're all getting out of the cloud. But this is the firing squad that you have to deal with enterprise. So, at Destor, we love these people. We know how to sell them. We know the tools that they need. That sheet that I had shows like the 15 types of content that you need for each stage of the sales cycle to talk to each of these personas. That's our sweet spot. We love doing it. But a lot of folks here don't have the time or the budget, or just don't feel like they're there yet. But this is what is needed to be at the table. But even Web3 Wes, he does need to satisfy his board. So when you show up in a call, like Paul said, you get 3 tries, you're out.
And Jen, if
you're like, yeah.
How much would it cost to build a sales team that, let's just say, Wasabi or Snowflake or...
Oh my gosh. Well, even
what
just...
is the estimate cost? just because we don't have that, that's the...
Yeah, so to build like a BDR team, if you had like 3 active BDRs, 2 account executives, and then a account-based marketer, you need $3 million in year just to hire them. You can outsource, and that's one of the things we've been trying to do we actually do it for Seal. We outsource, we manage a lot of their marketing, their flywheel we built for them, so they don't have to deal with it. We also do all of like the maintenance for them, and we take first line calls that come off of it. So like, who here has a customer success team? Chatbot, 24/7, human to answer the phone, knowledge base, account login. Shit, I can't log in. I lost my reset. I'm hard down. Who here can take that call?
I just give him Daniel's number.
Yeah, I give Daniel slack. But it's just, these are the things.
Just always Daniel.
So there's all that piece as well, and just, knowing how to run all of that is really, really tough. But, it's the stuff that I super adore. I love building sales teams and inside sales teams. But yeah, it's very expensive to scale. It's 3 to 10 million if you want to get up into a Wasabi level.
Yeah, and here's the other question is, a lot of the sales cycle can start before the product's ready, because that first conversation, those touch points, 6 to 12 months out there. And so this is something that I want to really kind of take away as a gap in our ecosystem right now is we could have everything, our pieces, ready 6 to 12 months from now. But that sales cycle needs to start right now. We need to really be ramping up our entire ecosystem to really be thinking about how we're filling in this gap. Because if we want to go after archival storage long-term and not just the short-term deals in Web3 object storage, which we should do both, but if we want to go after the biggest piece of pie, and I don't know where everyone agrees in the room or not, but we have to think about things from the sales cycle.
And I would say archival is really tough. I would say archival and enterprise specifically, and I'd like Stefan's view on this maybe, but I don't think that's where we should be selling, because you can't compete on tape. Just don't go there. Who else? Stefan?
Hey. I think, first of all, I agree with the fact that the cost for running Filecoin is still expensive compared to traditional disks. Definitely if you use erasure coding or other optimizations that would reduce the overhead and still increase the durability, which is what we're doing with Akave. Which is also why we're going after higher, more performance demanding workloads. Why? Because customers are willing to pay more for that, and there's more margin to be captured there. Because customers, to your point, the customers that are interested or in moving to decentralized storage are the ones that have felt the pain before. They had to pull their archives because they're doing something fancy with LLMs now, and they're like, oh, I need to figure out how I can use AI to improve or innovate in my business. And if I don't do it, my competitors will do it, and so I will be out-competed. So let's go look at these archives and let's go figure out what we can do with it. And then they get hit with a big bill, and that's when they feel like, this is not a long-term sustainable infrastructure because I'm pretty much locked in with this vendor. And this is also why we have a customer that is looking at moving data sets out of the cloud and is using Snowflake, for example, which is an analytics platform. And that's all great and good, but if you can offload some of those storage costs to decentralized storage. That's great. That's also where we bring value. The second type of customer we are seeing is a customer that wants to innovate. So they have large data sets and they see the vision of decentralization, meaning the smart contract, the capabilities that smart contracts, multi-sig wallets can provide. And they want to bring out new Web3 hybrid or 2.5, whatever you call it, types of applications. And they realize that for that to happen, for that to be able to implement that, they would need to bring their data on chain. So that's another more visionary type of customer. That's Web 2 that comes out of Web 2, but is realizing the value of building new applications on top of existing data sets.
Does anyone want to hear about a deal we lost and why?
That would be great.
All right. So we had an inbound that came in. It was a friendly. It's the New York Public Library. They had heard from the good old friends at New York, who left but was still very much, a big, advocate for Filecoin. They Googled, because by the way, we can see everything. It's really creepy. They Googled Destor, Filecoin, and they found us. They filled out a form. I did a discovery call with the decision maker. And he said the next call would be with his CTO. Met with the CTO. And we found out it was a 12 PIB video archive, POC. And they were ready to go. They understood the pricing. We gave them list price. And they were like, yep, that's great, no problem, yep, let's do this. So we brought 2 SPs to the table. We gave them a 15-minute speed date. It was a private dance, but a speed date. And they got 15 minutes to talk, and then at the end of the call, they had to send a link with instructions on how to give them access to run the POC, and it was a 1 PIB POC for 30 days, and then they would pick. Then they ghosted us, and we found out it was because there's a company called Preservica, and Preservica is the archival like behemoth for, people with archives, like libraries. And Preservica is an AWS certified partner. And so no matter who we spoke with at Preservica, we got every door slammed in our face. And even despite the client saying that they really believed in it, they wanted it, they were not willing to play or let us in. And why? Because they probably have Super Bowl tickets and a private jet. Yeah. So we can't compete there either. So back to the question, Tim, of back to the question of what is enterprise grade, that's another thing that we compete with is there are these niche incumbents that we don't know exist until they start popping up. So now I have a database of everyone that Preservica has as a reference so that we know, don't waste your time. But it's really interesting that a client was out solutioning, totally bought in, didn't ready to go, ready to drag and drop. They just needed the link and the instructions, and we're ready to start paying as a paid POC, which, by the way, you should do it. We do paid POCs as well, and because it was a large amount of data, and they were willing to do it. But yeah, Preservica was the gatekeeper, so that's why we lost that one.
John, we have a little bit more time. We were going to do a workshop, but I think the personas is really helpful for people to keep talking through. Do you mind sharing maybe a little bit more in the Web3 side as well? I know we talked about
The Web3 West one?
Web3 West, or if you go back one more slide. I don't know if there are other personas. No, actually.
Which one?
Go back to the one with, this one.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any personas for those in this room that you would like to better understand?
Oh yeah, Jill. I can pull up Jill. So we've written a few blogs about Jill. Jill's kind of elusive. She doesn't have very much time. Here she is. Okay, she's called Jack of All IT, Jill. All right, there we go. All right. Jill Robinson is 29 and female. Anyway, we find that they kind of cluster around the technology hubs. She is usually in a small business, so back to the small medium that we found. She has a very broad skill set, so she is like that. That's why we call her the Jill of all trades. She understands a little bit of everything, but she's completely obsessed she's tech savvy, but she's completely obsessed with budget. She's all about the budget. That's how so understanding her KPIs, she is held to a budget and has been given the directive to innovate, but yet also slash budgets by 20% every year. That's like just a standing KPI. So we can appeal to her and say that we will, reduce her costs. But the problem is with her is it needs to be simple and flexible, and Filecoin is not. And also, she's very wary of adopting complex systems. It's not something she's familiar with, and she can't hack her way through it. It's just not something she understands. And she also has some ego around asking for help. So she needs a very in-depth knowledge base. She is self-solving. She wants YouTube videos. She wants lots of, docs. She will go into Discord. She will go into GitHub, whereas a lot of other personas will not. And she's badass. She will let you know if you are wrong, but she will let you know if you're right. She's very fair, but she's very hard, very, very hard to actually deal with because she is not open to innovation for the sake of innovation. She's open to innovation if it helps her look like a rock star and be hyper efficient, because then it'll save her time and money. Do you know Jill?
Yeah, I met Jill when I was 30 years old, and we've been married for 24 years.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So Jill will come to our site, and she'll kick tires, and she'll consume stuff, but my site is not good for Jill because my site is very high level, market puffery. I don't go deep yet into what she needs, which is the stuff that you built, like Filecoin docs, right? And also, she likes podcasts. I'm launching one. Right? Am I right? Yes. See? Yep. Other people will put on music. She'll put on a freaking podcast and clean. When she's mad, she'll put on a podcast and clean. Yeah. I've done so many focus groups behind glass with so many people. But yeah, so this is Jill.
Who's been the biggest champion out of the personas? Or do you have to convince all of them? You go back to it, yeah.
For me personally, when I sell, the biggest champion for me became recently the biggest champion. So I've worked in IT. I actually had a CEO that made me work in IT before I could move up in marketing because he felt like if you couldn't work with the people that you're selling to, you didn't know shit. So I actually get along very, very well with the technical teams. I don't know enough to have ego or, I'm very deferential to them, so I get, it's very good. But now that I become a co-founder, it's all about the CEO. The Web3, the innovation, C-suite, co-founder, innovator, I can reach out to them on LinkedIn and I'll get a meeting.
So follow-up question to that, which is what's the golden path? What's the golden path through that collection of people?
Golden path?
Yeah, which is the best place to start, and then you go from X to Y to Z?
Yeah, so I've got one that's really good, but you can't tell anybody. All right, so the golden path is to appeal to any of them. And the golden path is to invite them onto a podcast to talk about something that they're super fired up about. You lurk the shit out of them, you find out what they're tweeting and talking about. You say, you look so knowledgeable, I would love to have on a guest on our podcast for 15 minutes. What does that get you? It gets you 3 hours of prep time just talking with this person. And then it gets a follow. That's the path.
That feels very high touch.
It is. But these are all bespoke. This is enterprise sales because this is not, we're not in a place where we're doing driving down CAC and cost per acquisition and we're trying to do volume. But that's the path. So then the other path is the one I love doing, which is the executive dinner with their peers, getting them in a round table in a Michelin star restaurant in a really cool venue, and We get them, like, I can guarantee we'll get you the right people. Stefan, we did this. We get the right people, the big banks, CIOs, the whole bit. Then what happens? What do I do after the dinner? Right?
Well,
so then you have to call them, and then you have to get the meeting, and then you need to have the deck, and then you need to have the, the white paper. Send me something I can send, like a solutions brief. It's the stuff after that we have a problem with. But we can get in. Getting in isn't our problem.
Agreed.
It's staying in.
The Web3 West to CTO is something that I've seen before as well, where you get to the CTO, they don't have a problem with S3. They're trying to release their MVP.
Yeah.
So what can we arm their CEO with, or Web3 West with, move that forward?
You need to arm them with a TCO ROI type calculator that will show the business justification that the risk is, like the lemon's worth the squeeze. The risk is worth the reward. I would say. You don't agree?
I think you're too late.
Oh.
I think the path here is we need to get in with the VCs with credits, because they're already stuck on GCP credits if they're a Web3 startup, and they're not going to move because they don't have time. They're under pressure to launch. They're under pressure to get the product launched. They're under pressure to get their token launched. They do not have time. We've seen this. They just do not have time to migrate to a new product unless they're big enough, which if they're already big enough, then they're an actual viable customer. But I generally think that these Web3 startups and even other startups are already locked into AWS, GCP, and Azure, Huawei Cloud, Alibaba, that we're too late. We need to get in front of the VCs and say, here are credits for your storage. What can we do to ensure that you use this from day one? This is an opinion based on the reality of what we've seen.
No, I mean, I think it's a really good opinion, because I agree with that. That this is also why we need to look at our builders as enterprise builders. Because why are all these builders building? Because they eventually want to build a business. And so if they're going to build a business, we got to treat our builders like enterprise builders, which means we should give them enterprise tools as they're building, and even the hackathons, right? Because we're all aspiring entrepreneurs, otherwise I wouldn't be there.
Yeah, and we've looked at, there's one pretty prominent VC in the crypto space where we did offer particular Filecoin credits. It's just our software wasn't ready. I mean, that was the issue. I think the challenge is we actually have the right ingredients, even in this room. People can get in the door. We just don't, we need to align with requirements from the sales side to what's being built across our product and engineering teams in our ecosystem. Because today we can't serve up the thing when we get to that executive dinner. And that's the reality.
I don't have anything to follow up with when they say, can you send me a solutions brief that I can bring to my next team meeting? I don't have it. So I write it, but that's not necessarily the right thing either.
Yeah, and so I think one thing that I showed yesterday on the main stage slide is that one thing that's really missing is this feedback loop, which is why we have this session today, is what do we need to give everyone here at FDS so that there is a feedback mechanism to say, we're building this way, we're building this feature, but is this actually something that we can provide to be valuable? Because if we don't get the sales side right, we don't have PMF, right? And it doesn't matter how cool or interesting or innovative our technology is. We also need to make sure we're addressing requirements.
So, sorry. So we're in this situation where like a lot of people, like everyone uses AWS because it's very convenient when you first launch your startup and you're off to the races. And then they're like, well, if you're successful, then it's like, oh, now I've got this problem because it's really expensive and I hate it and it's like annoying to it and I'm locked in. So the thing we're actually competing with is not AWS. It's the cost of setting up your own.
It's the cost of launch.
It's the cost of setting up your own data center and moving away from AWS. And it's like what we need to be is better than that.
I agree. That's a good one. Yes. Robert, I've got two now. But I end up with two.
Questions, and then we have to get to the next session, which we will transition to.
Yeah, I just want to double click into what Clara said about the sales side and making sure the solutions are there from the technology standpoint. And this is something we discussed in the Hacker House that I think is very important, which is Jonathan Schwartz has basically said we need to get in the room with the customers and make sure we're fulfilling their requirements, their SLAs, et cetera. And we're hoping to do that at least with the on-chain historical data. And actually, I just got a DM from someone who wants to do it with the Filecoin historical data. So maybe that will work out. But I think that's something that's very important. And maybe the reason it's missing is because from our previous work is that Filecoin is open source in a sense. So naturally, there's no startup with capital market pressure to make sure that Filecoin meets the needs of those potential customers. So hopefully we'll change that. And I know Jonathan Schwartz and Stefan and others are going to work on this.
One of the things that we do have access to is, and we just need to change some of our opt-in language, but when we're doing these discovery calls, we can do AI, like we have the Zoom AI that records everything and all that. Would anyone be interested in us setting that up and making those recordings available for product market fit, or is that of any interest to anybody here? Because I keep hearing, like, we need to hear from customers, we need to hear what they're saying on these calls, we need to hear it, but then I don't actually know if you would consume it.
I would just say my specific interest would be to talk to other chains who want to store their historical chain data on Filecoin. So I think just for me, like a lot of this work on Web 2 object storage and all this stuff is maybe not the lane I'm personally interested in going down, but I think it would be useful to have those calls. But I would want to speak to other chains.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.